What is the science of reading? What are leaders doing to accelerate reading achievement? We answer these questions and more in Science of Reading Leadership, Guiding Minds, Transforming Lives, powered by Just Right Reader. Welcome to another episode of the Science of Reading Leadership podcast. We are so excited because today we have a very special guest who is about to share all of her amazing work and the things she's doing in her district. And I cannot wait to jump into the conversation. So let's begin. Today, we are talking to Tracie Bergman. Tracie began her career as a fourth grade teacher in 1998. She spent 22 years working for Pinellas County Schools as a classroom teacher, curriculum specialist, assistant principal, elementary reading supervisor, and elementary school principal. She began working for Hillsborough County Public Schools in 2020 as the executive director of literacy, overseeing the curriculum and instruction in that subject area for grades pre-K to 12. In August of 2023, she became the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction with a literacy focus. Ms. Bergman earned her bachelor's degree in elementary education and ESE degree in 1997 from Flagler College. Tracie, I am so excited to have you. Let's start with this. I want to know how you got into education in the first place. It seems like you've been there for a while, but I want to know what brought you to this space.
I think I just always wanted to be a teacher. I have no idea why. I loved school. I couldn't wait to go to pre-K. I started school when I was 2. So that was just all I knew. I loved kindergarten. And just like after that, I fell in love with my kindergarten teacher. And I said, this is what I want to be. There was always like other ideas in my head, like I want to be a meteorologist or a teacher. I want to be a writer or a teacher. I want to be a ballerina or a teacher. So in the end, it came down to I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up. So that's how I landed here. I just love school. I used to play school, had a little school set up in my basement when I was growing up. So just kind of always wanted, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So here I am.
I love when I hear teachers, educators say, I've always wanted to be an educator, right? Because I love to hear the stories of how people came to education, but there's something just truly like heartwarming and like endearing to me when I hear about people who said, I wanted to be a teacher, so I became a teacher. I think that's such a beautiful thing. So now you are in Hillsborough County Public Schools. Can you tell us a little bit about that district, demographics? Tell us about your current location.
Yeah, so Hillsborough County Schools, we're located more on the western side of the state of Florida. We are the 7th largest district in the nation, with about 200,000 students, give or take, about 240 plus schools on any given day. And we serve pre-K through 12, primarily, and we are pretty diverse. We have about 40% of our population is Hispanic, about 10% are ELL learners. And just in terms of our community, we have a very urban district in terms of our downtown areas and some of the businesses. But then we also have rural areas out more towards the eastern portion of our county. We have communities that have been established for years and years and years. And then we have newer communities in terms of that are still being built up with new construction. So a lot of vast things that, kind of go on within our county, a lot of working parts. So definitely a diverse, definitely large.
Definitely diverse and definitely large. Could you see my face as you're talking? I'm like, oh, wow, like that's a lot to take in. So I know that you're doing a lot of work around literacy in Hillsborough County. What are you doing right now to really establish an instructional infrastructure around that high quality literacy instruction?
So when I first started in Hillsborough in 2020, one of the first things that we started with was just building out from our department an instructional framework. So in terms of what do we need to see in literacy instruction across all classrooms, all grade level bands, what's the commonalities, what's different, obviously kindergarten classroom versus a 12th grade classroom, but that idea of whole group instruction, small group instruction, foundational skills instruction, differentiation, where does it all fit in? So we started there with kind of laying out what that looks like, and making it as clear as we could with teachers and trying to plug in our materials with where that framework fits so they can see that connection. In 2020, we also began entering the literacy adoption. Was also, it happened to be adoption year for us here in Florida. So it was a nice time also for us to kind of say, okay, let's take a look at the instructional materials that are out there. We reviewed them as a district. We had teacher input and coach input, principal input, etc., into really building it. So it was kind of a nice opportunity for us to do that, as we move forward. So I'd say that was kind of our first step, would be to start with the frameworks, then look at our instructional materials, and then from there, professional development and talking to teachers and building our instructional guides around that, to make it work for our district and our students.
And what are some of the s- struggles? What are some of the challenges you've seen as you've started that building of that structure?
So number one is we're big. So
Yeah.
messaging, communication, getting people on the same page and common language, can definitely be a challenge. It's still something I would say that we are challenged with, just in terms of the sheer size of the district. And really, we've had to really work on, how do we message that? How do we develop professional development and systems of support that can meet the needs of everybody? I think another challenge that we faced, especially coming out of COVID, was vacancies. I mean, teaching, there's
Hmm.
just a lot of
There's a
vacancies.
shortage. Yeah.
There is a shortage, and it has affected us as a district, and it's a fact. It is, so, and even where we do have teachers in place, some of those teachers are not as experienced as what we have been used to in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with that as well. So again, just trying to say, okay, so if I have teachers at varying level of degrees of ability to implement, or
Yeah.
skill set to implement instruction, what do we need to provide on our end in order to strengthen that?
Yeah.
Um, and then we also have gaps just in student success across our schools. We have some schools that are very, very successful, kids, high performing students straight across the board, but we have a lot of low persistent, like persistency, low performing schools. And so with that, we're also trying to think, well, how do we find that instructional piece that meets the needs of all of our learners? And then what supports and can we provide to meet that school level need as well? So I think for us, that's where our challenges face.
Yeah. And, but you put so much work into it. So, what have you seen have been the successes?
So I would say this year we really moved forward, kind of starting in the summer with our move towards more of a science of reading aligned curriculum, building common understanding. We implemented some different pieces in our foundational skills. We implemented different assessments than what we've used before. And I
Hmm.
would say, you would think in a big district, it would take a number of years to get people on board. And I would say one of our biggest successes is we got our elementary, it was started in elementary, and we got our pre-K 5 teachers on board, in terms of what they're using and how they're assessing kids. I think they saw a need, and they said, okay, good, we're getting something to help us and to help our kids be successful. We were able to include some support at the district level, coaches to be able to go out to sites and model for teachers, work with school teams and building capacity within wherever their starting point was. That's where we go in. So while we provide district wide training, we were also able to provide that individualized school support. We have some partnerships, that have really helped us with different universities, that have really done it. And we've implemented, a train the trainer process. So we've built capacity across. Now it's not just my team that knows how to do it, or my elementary supervisor. It is, teachers that can train other teachers that can spread the message, and it kind of gets like feelers. So we have seen success this year. I think is our first year that we're really like, wow, like it took off and off it went. And it's kind of exciting to see, because we know that change takes time, and results take time to
Yeah.
change, to see and to kind of follow through with that. But I think if you can get the excitement there and you can get teachers doing it, we'll definitely see the fruits of our labor moving forward.
Yeah. I love the fact that you keep identifying and pointing out the fact that you've done a lot of professional development. You've created a lot of support around your teachers and your instructional staff and your coaches. And I really think that as I talk to more leaders and we start to understand that when we create that structure of support around our leaders and our teachers, the confidence is so boosted that you see the trickle down effect. Because when I'm confident and I'm knowledgeable and I know that I know, right? I'm not just going in there and like winging it and faking it and pretending like I know. Then you begin to see that the students and then the parents, because we're communicating in a way that makes sense because we know it. And that has a tremendous effect on the success of any program. So I really love the fact that everything you've said is really underpinned by we're creating support around our teachers and our staff to ensure that they know this stuff. I think that's really powerful. This episode is brought to you by Just Right Reader. A critical component of a high-quality explicit phonics program is applying developing phonics skills in real connected text. Decodables give children opportunities to read successfully and independently from the moment they begin learning phonics. For beginning readers, experiencing the joy of reading success is highly motivating and accelerates achievement. To learn more, visit justrightreader.com. I want to know about the high quality materials that you're using. How did you choose those? How did you go about identifying those high quality materials that your teachers are now using in their classrooms?
So we started out when I first came to Hillsborough. We actually had a partnership with a group, Impact Florida. I think they were partnered with TNTP. I may be incorrect on that, but so with that, they really walked us through the process of taking a look at our standards. We are shifting to the best standards in Florida. We do not use Common Core or anything like that, so we have the best standards. And so they really, had us dig deep into curriculum materials and say, like, what are your goals? We created as a team, across with our supervisors and our coaches, a review mechanism to use for the high quality curriculums that we were planning to review within our adoption year. And we were able to utilize that, provide training around that to our adoption team, and then move forward with the adoption process, which, we follow our district, process in terms of getting teacher input, parent input, stakeholder input, et cetera, et cetera. But even after, right, you adopt, there's no such thing as a perfect curriculum. Like, I could have the best review tool, the most genius teachers I've ever seen on my committee. And you know what? We're still going to adopt something that doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't have everything, right?
It doesn't have everything that I want. It doesn't, there is no such thing. And so I think as a district leader, you just have to accept that. But, some of the things, you learn things along the way, right? Like I've been in education a long time. You learn things along the way that you're like, if I woulda, coulda, shoulda done this, whatever. So things happen. But one of the things you look at, though, from a district leadership standpoint is the district data and getting input from teachers. So we're able to do both of those. I mean, obviously, we've shifted assessments in the state, so it's been hard to kind of keep track, but we notice our data is stagnant. We've also noticed, we surveyed teachers last year. We asked them specifically about their foundational skills program in the program that we adopted. And, it came up meh. Like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like amazing.
Was like, wow.
Yeah. And so when you think about it, like, again, seventh largest district, are we okay with meh? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not okay with meh. Like, like, would you be okay having your kid getting meh every day? So from there, we started, where we decided to start was with a revamp of our foundational skills and a focus on pre-K3 early literacy. So we have shifted from using our regular core. We have a traditional core curriculum, nothing, fancy special, but we have shifted to using UFly, University of Florida Foundational Skills Program. And so we met with them, learned about it really through teachers that were trying it out, like people that had heard about it and Facebook groups and weird things like that. Met with Dr. Lane and her team, and our team met, and we developed this partnership and said, all right, we're going to try it. And so that's kind of also, looking at the data and not being afraid to say it's not working. Like, we're not getting the results. And what we're seeing is a block in third grade. Like, we're seeing our third grade data it's terrible. And why is it? You keep telling me it's because kids can't read. Well, if they can't read, we have to go backwards and find out why. And so that's where we landed foundational skills. We implemented UFly. Again, we really started with a top down and a bottom up building, like, professional development plan where I had to start really with the board members and our regional superintendents and principals and district leaders, et cetera, to get their buy-in. But then we also had to get the bottom up and educate our teachers and explain why we were moving their cheese yet again after we did a reading adoption. Why does the cheese keep moving? This is why. And so I think, really showing them this is what it needs to look like. This is what we have, but this is what we can give you. And so through that and kind of an alignment of resources, we've really been able to move with the curriculum that we have without abandoning it, but adding something different for them. And I feel like it has really benefited them from that. But you also have to be okay with saying sometimes you just can't get blood from a turnip. I mean, it's just not
Right.
there. So if
Right.
it's not working, kids are too valuable. You can't say, well, we'll see what happens in 5 years. Well, in 5 years, those elementary school kids are going to be high schoolers, not able to pass graduation benchmark and not able to get to college. So are we okay with that? No, the urgency is always there. So I think you have
Yeah.
to be aware of that with your materials and be willing to make a shift, make a change, and just be like, look, I need you guys just to hop on this train one more time with me. And then off we go.
And maybe not one more time, but this time.
More times.
Now.
Time. We should go on a little ride this time. Then we'll see where we go next time. But luckily, like I will say, I would say over 90% of our teachers were. They went to training this summer for both UFly, and then we also introduced the Dibbles assessment to go along. They go together, sort of. So we implemented both, and we're seeing the usage is almost 100% in our district, which in a district our size is huge.
That is huge. And I think that at the core of every educator, I mean, we know there's always outliers, right? But at the core of every teacher, they just want to do what's good for kids. And when we as educators see the value or see the promise or see the fact that there is something in here that's good for kids, we're willing to pivot. Teachers are pretty flexible beings. I mean, and if we know that it's good for kids or we can even see a glimmer of goodness for children, we're willing to shift. And I think that speaks to, again, that professional development, that communicating with the professionals. This is why we're doing it. This is what we're seeing. That's going to be the key to shifting everyone and getting everybody to kind of shift. So you've talked a lot about teachers, you've talked a lot about staff, and we also have a lot of research, and we know that getting parents and parental involvement is so important. So for you, what is the role of the family in supporting literacy, and what have you done to promote that?
So one thing that we do have is a partnership with the state of Florida has the New Worlds Literacy Initiative. It was the Reading Initiative, and it has or New Worlds Learning Initiative. I think it's now become.
Okay.
And with the New Worlds Learning Initiative, it includes books for kids with the resources, with activities, with different pieces. It's free. All the parent has to do is sign up. They can do it in different languages, different anything they need. It gets mailed to their house. So that was step one, I think, for us is let's get books in kids' hands, real books. I mean, I am a Kindle reader, not gonna lie, but I'm also a reader. So when you're learning how to read, like you want the books in their hands. You want kids to have that, that idea of getting to the end of the book and running around your house saying, I finished, right? This provides that. So that is one thing that we have promoted. New Worlds will also do family engagement events. So we partnered them up with our literacy coaches to do outreach when they have to do their annual parent meetings and literacy evenings and things like that for some of their Title I plans and different plans. So introducing that and being a part of that. We've also begun to cluster our sites. So we have a grant through the state of Florida as well that has a feeder pattern. So it has, I want to say 5 elementary schools, all the pre-K providers in that area that feed into them, the middle schools, and then 1 high school. And so we've hosted a parent engagement event at that high school where we brought everybody, pre-K 12 into that same space and had that conversation about literacy, provided some training, some resource access, etc. To bring them in. UFly has a really good parent home resources. And so we've made those accessible to our families so that they're able to do that. We work with our educational foundation as well to support some of our family nights and our outreach.
Mhm.
As far as, but there's always stuff you could do more, right? Like there's always ways. Again, we have a lot of newcomers and different pieces. So some of the other, we're working on different plans for next year to start reaching out for tutoring pieces that could be outreached into the home or into, centralized locations where our kids are. We're looking at developing a district-wide literacy campaign to build some community awareness around what we're doing. So with that would be involving our community partners, political figures, et cetera, into that. So continuing that. And also, I think our next step is to we provide resources online, we provide the Read at Home plan from the state and different things. It's also about how do I get those resources into the hands of parents. This year it was all about purchasing magnetic letters and cookie trays that the letters go on for all of our classrooms. So now the next step is how do I get some of that stuff into the hands of our families, into the hands of our daycares, into the hands of our churches, et cetera, to make sure that our kids have access when they're outside of our school.
So you gave us a lot, right? Just right there, just even in parent engagement, you gave us a lot. So of all of that, all of the things that you're trying, all the things that you're doing, what would you say is like the top 3 things that you would try to share with families about how to support their literacy rich home, like their environment at home? What would you say to the parents?
So I think for the parents, I think one of the things I would say first is oral language is critical. Period. Talk to your kids. I was one of those kids that, I mean, I came from a single family home, like single parent home, but I did sit down at the dinner table with my mom at night and talked about my day, and I babbled. I was an only child, so I babble anyway. But so that's number one. Give the time to talk to your child. Push them to talk. Don't accept the one word answers of fine, good, get them to talk and build that oral language. I think a second thing is take advantage of the resources that are out there. A lot of our families forget the library. Like, don't forget the library. You can go to the library, it's free. And
It doesn't stream, but it's free.
But it's free. But still, you can go there. There's an app. Even if you are the app person and you are that Kindle reader, you can get stuff for your kids on that app and still utilize that. We have Mayan, which is a program that also, provides free books online to kids. Utilize that. Take advantage of what's out there with what you have. You have a cell phone, you can access it. And so really having that conversation, I think, with our families. And I think, the other thing is really working with our families and providing resources to them of don't be afraid to ask questions in a school. A school is intimidating. If you're not an educator, we talk in acronyms and jargon and things that make absolutely no sense. And, when parents hear, like, is my kid going to pass? Is he doing okay? And the answer is not really. Like, ask the question, well, what can I do? What's the problem? Where is the issue? So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't be intimidated by the people sitting in the room, because I think sometimes their families are, and sometimes they don't get the support that they need or the support that they want. So really just promoting that access and that accessibility.
Yeah, I love how you said talk to your children, because our kids, they are app children. They are scrolling, and there's not a lot of communication. There's not a lot of dialogue in that. And so one word answers are text answers, okay, good. YMFO, whatever, like thumbs up.
You just click a button now and answer.
Right. And this morning I was driving my kid to school, and I was like, so what's on your mind? She goes, sleep. Well, talk to me about sleep. What does that do for you? And she was like, Mom, like you're going to talk to me this morning. And it's being creative and getting them to like talk, So I think that was really, really good. What advice do you have for current district leaders as they start to align their practices to the science of reading, right? The science of reading, the science learning. What are you giving them in terms of advice as how they can align their practices?
So I think the first one sounds silly, but the first one is, be a consumer of curriculum, be a consumer of research, be a consumer of knowledge. When you're thinking about, I'm not into positions and titles and things like that, but you also have to think about it. Like when I read my emails or talk to community members, like, they are looking to the district level to help guide them in the right direction. So, number one is you have to know it, you have to study it, and you have to live it at the school site. So, kind of being visible in those schools, hearing teachers, listening to principals, listening to people who supervise all of those people, and saying, okay, so where are we? And what do I know about it so that I can work with my team and, kind of think about where we can go moving forward. I also think sometimes, I kind of go with a double-edged sword. Go big or go home. Don't be afraid to make the big moves
Yeah.
because I could have chosen to do fly at certain schools, piloted a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here. And then in 5 years, we may be done, but is that enough for our kids? So you have to kind of think about that plan. But at the same time, that's not the only thing we planned. We know there's other things. We know we have to work on writing next. We know we have to address the other side of the rope. And so with that, kind of chunking out that planning side as well, right? So go big with the moves, but chunk it out over time so people don't get overwhelmed, and really think, where do you need to go next? What's your next plan? And just accepting the fact from a district standpoint, curriculum development, like our role never stops. Like we're never done. And be like, oh, okay, I'm done now for the next
I
5 years.
made it.
I'm never done, and neither is my team. And it's exhausting, but it's sometimes the best part about it is that it's never done. We're always trying to improve and get better and learn more stuff. So I think you have to accept that, come at it from that mindset and move forward.
Awesome. So this has been awesome. You have shared some truly amazing nuggets and some really great advice. I want to know from you, is there anything that I should have asked you about Hillsborough County, the work that your team is doing? Is there anything else that you want us to know or that you're really proud to share?
I would definitely say that it definitely takes a village to make any change, and to turn a ship, especially when it's a large one like Hillsborough County. So I am fortunate to have my literacy team. They are the most wonderful people I've ever worked for. They're dedicated, they're hardworking. And so without them, like it's not me doing it. It's them, it's their teams, it's the teachers, it's the principals, it's the coaches that do the work every day. And so kind of that I think is that it truly is a team effort, when you're trying to make change. And so sometimes you get lost, in the world that you live in, but never forgetting that it's everybody moving in the same direction. So I think that's one of those things.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end it. That I couldn't say it better. So I won't even try. I want to take this moment to just say thank you, Tracie, so much for being here, for sharing what you're doing. It's amazing. We're excited to watch you and continue to see you. Are you on Twitter or I guess X? Are you on any of those?
I am not. I am the social media, stand away from it. I'm on nothing. I'm on my district email. That's about it. So
well, we are going to continue. Well, we are going to continue watching your district and seeing all of the great things that you're doing and all of the great strides that you're making. And we'll know one behind the helm, turning it and making it amazing with your team. Thank you again for being with us. Thank you again for sharing. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for another episode. Be sure to tune in and listen to our next one. Until then, bye. Thanks for joining us. If you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. We will see you next time on Science of Reading Leadership, guiding minds, transforming lives.